The Aunt and the Sluggard. Now that it's all over, I may as well admit that there was a time during the rather funny affair of Rockmettler Todd when I thought that Jeeves was going to let me down. The man had the appearance of being baffled. Jeeves is my man, you know. Officially, he pulls in his weekly wages for pressing my clothes and all that sort of thing, but actually he is more like what the poet Johnny called some bird of his acquaintance who was apt to rally round him in times of need. A guide, don't you know, philosopher, if I remember rightly, and, I rather fancy, friend. I rely on him at every turn. So naturally, when Rocky Todd told me about his aunt, I didn't hesitate. Jeeves was in on the thing from the start. The affair of Rocky Todd broke loose early one morning of spring. I was in bed, restoring the good old tissues with about 9 hours of the dreamless, when the door flew open and somebody prodded me in the lower ribs and began to shake the bedclothes. After blinking a bit and generally pulling myself together, I located Rocky, and my first impression was that it was some horrid dream. Rocky, you see, lived down on Long Island somewhere, miles away from New York, and not only that, but he had told me himself more than once that he never got up before 12, and seldom earlier than 1. Constitutionally the laziest young devil in America, he had hit on a walk in life which enabled him to go the limit in that direction. He was a poet. At least, he wrote poems when he did anything, but most of his time, as far as I could make out, he spent in a sort of trance. He told me once that he could sit on a fence, watching a worm and wondering what on earth it was up to, for hours at a stretch. He had his scheme of life worked out to a fine point. About once a month he would take 3 days writing a few poems. The other 329 days of the year he rested. I didn't know there was enough money in poetry to support a chappie, even in the way in which Rocky lived, but it seems that, if you stick to exhortations to young men to lead the strenuous life, and don't shove in any rhymes, American editors fight for the stuff. Rocky showed me one of his things once. It began, Be, the past is dead, tomorrow is not born, be today, be with every nerve, with every muscle, with every drop of your red blood, be. It was printed opposite the frontispiece of a magazine, with a sort of scroll round it, and a picture in the middle of a fairly nude chappie, with bulging muscles, giving the rising sun a glad eye. Rocky said they gave him $100 for it, and he stayed in bed till 4 in the afternoon for over a month. As regarded the future, he was pretty solid, owing to the fact that he had a moneyed aunt tucked away somewhere in Illinois, and, as he had been named Rockmettler after her, and was her only nephew, his position was pretty sound. He told me that when he did come into the money, he meant to do no work at all, except perhaps an occasional poem recommending the young man with life opening up before him, with all its splendid possibilities, to light a pipe and shove his feet upon the mantelpiece. And this was the man who was prodding me in the ribs in the grey dawn.
Read this, Bertie.
I could just see that he was waving a letter or something equally foul in my face.
Wake up and read this.
I can't read before I've had my morning tea and a cigarette. I groped for the bell. Jeeves came in looking as fresh as a dewy violet. It's a mystery to me how he does it. Tea, Jeeves?
Very good, sir.
He flowed silently out of the room. He always gives you the impression of being some liquid substance when he moves. And I found that Rocky was surging round with his beastly letter again. What is it? I said. What on earth's the matter?
Read it.
I can't. I haven't had my tea.
Well, listen then.
Who's it from?
My aunt.
At this point I fell asleep again. I woke to hear him saying,
So what on earth am I to do?
Jeeves trickled in with the tray, like some silent stream meandering over its mossy bed, and I saw daylight. Read it again, Rocky, old top, I said. I want Jeeves to hear it. Mr. Todd's aunt has written him a rather rummy letter, Jeeves, and we want your advice.
Very good, sir.